Hi friends, I'm Chelsea and I'm here with a book haul. I got my tea and my book cart and I'm ready to go. So I have about 25 books here, I think. These are books that I've gotten in the last couple of months, either books I bought myself or received or picked up for free, which I'll show you in a little bit. So yeah, let's just jump right in. I'm gonna take a sip of my nighty-night tea, I guess that's what it's called. Because yes, it is nighttime. It turns out it's kind of hard to find a time to record when you have a baby. So she's in bed and that's what we're doing. So the first little group of books is my Christmas book haul. It's really heavy. Thanks, Sarah J Maas. Yeah, my Christmas book haul. I received 5 books for Christmas from various family members. So let's jump right in. I'm gonna start with this one. So this is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. And she's actually local to where I live, which is kind of cool. I just learned that little fact. I read her book, Spells for Forgetting, in the fall. I really loved it, and I've heard a lot of good things about this one. So I am really excited to jump into this soon. This is kind of like a magical realism fantasy-ish, but more on the magical realism side. And it's about a woman who has a family's centuries-old curse, and she is trying to break the curse. And honestly, I don't really know a lot about it, but I have heard a lot of good things, so I'm excited to read this. Next up, this was actually my favorite book of 2023, but I borrowed it from a friend, so I knew I had to own it myself. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I absolutely loved this book. I had heard, again, a lot of hype about it, but I wasn't super sure about it since it's set in like the world of video game design, and that's not really my area of interest or expertise, so I was a little skeptical going in, but I found that it really is just a book about relationships and friendships, romance, like all the relationships, and just art, creating, all of those things. So it's not really about video games. So if you're scared to read this one because of that, don't worry. I was also, and I loved it. So I'm very happy to own this one now. So next up, in the same vein, I also read this one, but I listened to it on audiobook, and now I own the book. So this is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and yeah, I listened to the audiobook. I really loved it. It felt like a Rolling Stone interview or some sort of like real life musician interview, basically. It was really well done, and so it was one of my top books from 2022, I think, so I knew I had to own this one as well, and I've really enjoyed everything I've read by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'd say this is my top book of hers that I've read, followed by The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is also a great one. But yeah, this one feels like it could have happened, and I don't know if you've seen the show. I really enjoyed the show. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's really well done. The music is super catchy and really fun, so I'm also excited to own this one. Next up, we have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, and this, I believe, is another kind of like magical realism, romance. There's like a ghost element to it, and yeah, I've never read anything by this author, but this is one that I've seen a lot, and yeah, I kind of just wanted to check it out. A lot of times, I honestly don't really know like the plot of a book. I either love the cover, or I've heard a lot of hype about it, so maybe I should start to learn the plots of books more. But yeah, so this one. And then this chunker, A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. So I've actually read this one already. My sister-in-law bought it for me like the day before Christmas because I had been reading this whole series and I didn't have this book, and I was like ready to jump in. So it was a really nice last-minute gift, and I started it, I read it this month, so I started it after Christmas, but I got this one for Christmas as well. So this is the 5th book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I'm going to talk about the other books in just a second. So that is my Christmas haul. So speaking of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, I read the whole series in December and January. So I bought the first book, I think, in November, and I read it in December, and then as I was reading it, I knew I had to continue the series, so I picked the second book up, which is my favorite book in the whole series and was one of my favorite books of 2023. it's so good, and honestly a lot better than the first book. So if you're considering jumping into the series and you're just kind of so-so on the first book, I highly recommend continuing on, because the second and the third book are the best books in the series, in my opinion. They're all really good, but the first one, yeah, it's okay. And then the fourth book, which is a cute little novella, it's just a really cozy, like, little reprieve from all the events that happened in these two books. And yeah, this one was really fun. So I was reading the books and I just kept buying the next one because I was really hooked. And yeah, I read the whole series in December and January. So that says something about how much I enjoyed the series. So there you go. Next up, this is a very heavy stack of books here. So I might as well continue on the Sarah J Maas theme. Her books have been on my list for a while and I have just never gotten to them before last month. So I read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. Like I said, I have not read Crescent City. So I picked this up with a Barnes & Noble gift card, and I know the third book is coming out at the end of the month. It might already be out by the time this video is out, so I wanted to at least start the first book soon. I'm a little intimidated by the thickness of it. I might pick up the audiobook because, let's be real, that's the way I'm most likely to finish a book these days. But yeah, this is the first book in the Crescent City series. That's hard to say. House of Earth and Blood. Okay, I already talked about these books in my first video, but I did buy these books recently, so I wanted to include them. So Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is a duology, and this is another one that I've been seeing all over the internet. Very hyped up. So here's the first one, and I'm currently reading the second one still. I'm over halfway through, but moving slow. But yeah, I was listening to Divine Rivals on audio, but I was really enjoying it, and I figured I would like to own the book, and I knew that I couldn't read Ruthless Vows unless I had the book because I couldn't find it anywhere else. So figured might as well own the completed duology. So here we go. Okay, next up, here is a literal tome of a book, and I am probably the most excited about this in the whole book haul. So this is Jane Austen's 7 novels, which it's a thick one. It's like over 1,000 pages, so that's no small thing. But isn't this book just beautiful? I saw it and I was like, I need this. It's amazing. And honestly, I was expecting this to be like, I don't know, $50 at least, but it was only $30. So I knew I had to buy it. It has, let's see, all her big ones. Sense and Sensibility, which I've read. Pride and Prejudice, which I've read. Mansfield Park, I have not read. Emma, I have read. Northanger Abbey, I have not read. Persuasion, I have not read, but my book club is reading for February, so I'll be reading that soon. And then Lady Susan, I have not read. So a couple in here that I haven't read, and a couple that I loved and would probably reread one day. So this is a very exciting addition to my shelf here. Okay, we're getting quite the collection. So this is actually a Little Free Library haul. So I don't know if you are familiar with Little Free Libraries, but it's pretty much what it sounds like. They're little like boxes of books that people put in front of their house or different places around the community, and people just trade books, like bring a book and take a book. So it's a pretty cool thing. And there's actually an app that lets you track them and find them around town. So I just took a morning one day driving around town, took some books off my shelf, and looked around some Little Free Libraries. So some of these are actually ARCs that are not the final copy of the book. And honestly, I don't know how interested in these I am, but I have heard of either these authors or these books, and I figured they're free. I'm getting rid of a book and switching it out. It can't hurt to pick them up. So this one is Runtime by Catherine Ryan Howard. I read 56 Days by her. It's a book set during like COVID quarantine times, and it was pretty good. It was a thriller, and this is also a thriller. It's about like movie making. Honestly, I don't know. Again, I should have looked at these ahead of time. So yeah, Runtime. We'll see. We'll see if I read this. Okay, so this one is called A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. And this one, I've heard of it. I have not read this author before, but I know it's historical romance. And I recently read, what is it called? The Duchess Dare? No, let's do that again. The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. That's a mouthful. and I really loved that. We read that for my book club, and I thought that was really fun. So I saw this and I figured it would be fun to try out another historical romance. Oh, Alexis Hall is a man. Interesting. I did not know that. Cool, cool. Okay, next up. This one is called Booth by Karen Joy Fowler. And this one is a historical fiction, and it's about John Wilkes Booth, set in 1822, and it just kind of goes into like his history and his family and all of that. So it kind of seems like a different take on historical fiction, and just yeah, something you don't read about a whole lot. And I had heard of this one before actually, and thought I would pick it up. Now this one is the one I'm most excited about with the little free library haul. So this is the Anthropocene Reviewed, I might not have said that right, by John Green. So he wrote The Fault in Our Stars, which I have not read, but I watched the movie and bawled my eyes out. So this is actually a book of essays. It says Essays on a Human-Centered Planet. So it's nonfiction, which is not what I normally go for, but I've heard really good things about this one, and I was just excited to pick up a nice copy, Book of the Month hardback for free. That's pretty rare. And yeah, it's just a book of essays. Let's see, it says, in this remarkable symphony of essays, adapted and expanded from his groundbreaking podcast, best-selling author John Green reviews different facets of the human-centered planet on a 5-star scale, from the QWERTY keyboard and sunsets to Canada geese and penguins of Madagascar. So yeah, it just sounds kind of interesting. I don't know, we'll see. I never read nonfiction, so it seems like an interesting book to pick up. So, okay, we have one last category of books. Okay, here we go. One more big old stack. So this is my thrift haul, and that's where I get most of my books, either Goodwill or local used bookstores. And yeah, I'll just start on the top here, I guess. So this is another author that I already talked about, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston again. Poston, who knows. So yeah, she wrote The Dead Romantics too, which is in here. And this is her most recent novel, I believe. Yeah, 2023. And this one is like another kind of magical realism, time travel. Basically, this woman moves into her aunt's apartment, and there's a man in there from a different time, 7 years in the past. And yeah, so it's like a love story, and I've heard that it's pretty heartbreaking, but also really, really poignant, and a great love story with some magical time travel elements. So that sounds right up my alley. So I'm excited about that one. Okay, this one I found at Goodwill for like $2. And I've seen this cover a lot, and I've heard of the book, and really honestly, I don't know a whole lot else about it. But yeah, I know it's set in Cape Cod, and it unfolds over 24 hours and across 50 years. So it's like a sweeping kind of like family story, love story, kind of all the things. Seems like kind of just a thought-provoking, emotional, multi-generational story. Okay, so this is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I've heard a lot about this author, about this book, and it says Hamnet, a novel of the plague. So that sounds like some nice light reading material. This is set in England in 1580, and just the first little blurb here. The Black Death creeps across the land, an ominous threat infecting the healthy, the sick, the old, and the young alike. The end of days is near, but life always goes on. A young Latin tutor, penniless and bullied by a violent father, falls in love with an extraordinary, eccentric young woman. And it goes on and on. And yeah, so I've heard just that her writing is really great, and looks like she's won a lot of awards. And it's pretty short too. It's like on under 300 pages, so I like that. Next up, I'm sure you've heard of this one, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So I thought I had the whole series, but it turns out I did not own the first book. So I figured if I'm gonna have all the other books, I should probably own the first book. So I've read all of these. It's been quite some time, and seen all the movies, of course, but I figured one day it'd be fun to read these to my daughter, so I want to own the first book. So that's that. Okay, a couple more here. These are my hardbacks. Okay, another thrift find. This is The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honeysett by Annie Lyons, and I've seen, I think maybe just 1 or 2 people talking about this. I have not seen it a lot, but someone that I follow who I usually like her book recommendations, she posted about this one and said it was really good, really endearing. If you liked Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine, and A Man Called Uvo, which I actually haven't read, but it's on my list. It's about an older lady who meets a 10-year-old, and the older lady, Eudora, is the main character. She just wants to be alone, but she ends up going on adventures with this 10-year-old girl, and they meet someone else along the way. And so it's kind of like a group of unlikely friends who get together. And yeah, it just seems like a great, like, heartwarming, quirky kind of story about an older lady and a younger girl and all that. So it seems like a cute one. Okay, next up we have The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. And this is another one I have seen a lot, mostly at used bookstores, and I like almost pick it up, but I never do. And I finally saw it the other day and I was like, I need to get this. So as you saw, my tome, my Jane Austen tome, I'm a fan of Jane Austen, so just the title alone drew me in. And it looks like this one is also a historical one. So it's set in after the Second World War in the English village of Chawton, which was the final home of Jane Austen. And it's about a group of people that all love Jane Austen, and so that kind of brings them together. And yeah, they kind of just go through, you know, dealing with the after effects of the war and create the Jane Austen Society. Seems like this one's kind of like the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. I never know if I'm going to say that correctly. Which honestly, I loved the movie and didn't love the book, which is usually the opposite, but it's a really fun concept and a great story regardless. So it seems like this is kind of similar to that, if you've read that. Okay, last ones, more historical fiction. Okay, this one I'm really excited about. I have read this one and actually listened to the audiobook, surprise. And the audiobook, I will say, is very good. So I should say what the book is. It's Lovely War by Julie Berry. I love this cover also. It's really fun. So I loved the audiobook. It was a full cast, it had music, and it was just really well done. So I, honestly recommend, if you're going to read this book, listening to the audiobook, but I loved it so much that I wanted to own it. So this is another kind of like World War book. It's set in both World Wars, and it follows like 4 different people, and there's like some romance elements and lots of musical kind of themes, and it also has like Greek mythology, which is not really what you would expect. It's like perspective of like different Greek gods and goddesses like Aphrodite, and I can't think of any other Greek gods right now, but you can imagine the Greek gods, you know. I literally can't think of any. So Aphrodite is the main one though. So anyway, highly recommend this book if you like historical fiction and a little bit of like mythology. It honestly kind of reminds me of Divine Rivals, so kind of an interesting correlation there. So yeah, love this book and I'm very happy to own it. And then lastly, Sisters in Arms by Kaya Alderson. And honestly, I think I've seen this book before. This was another cheap thrift find, book of the month, really nice copy. And this looked really interesting. I read the synopsis a little bit and thought it sounded really cool. So like I said, another historical fiction based on a true story, which I'd never heard of this. But so yeah, the thing at the top says, as the first and only all-black battalion of the Women's Army Corps, the legendary 6888, these brave women risked their lives to serve with honor against incredible odds. So yeah, it follows a female black battalion of the Women's Army Corps, and yeah, it just kind of goes into the history of what this was like for black women during World War II. I feel like that's a really also unique take on history, so I am excited to read this one. And that concludes the book haul. So I would love if you could let me know if you've read any of these books or if any of them are on your TBR, and also if you've picked up any books lately that you're excited about. So let's see if I can get to my tea. My throat's really dry and I should probably drink some tea. And that is it. I will see you in my next video. Bye!